So I'm going to go through a quick demo how you can access your on-prem SQL Server through Openflow SPCS, and that's through Privatelink. Or you need like a point-to-site connection, express route, or whatever to make sure that your VNet can talk to that. Then you need a proxy. You need a standard load balancer that will forward traffic to that proxy. Then you need to have a Privatelink service, Azure Privatelink service. Then that will generate an alias which you will provision as a private endpoint in Snowflake. Then, of course, your network rule and your EAI, you state that alias in your network rule, then you use the network rule in your EAI, and boom, Openflow can pull data. So for implementation, just make sure. So I'm going to go through this as though you have no Azure resources or even your SQL Server is not connected yet. So if you have all that set up, you can skip all the baby steps, all right, and go straight to what you really came here for. I will just use the Azure CLI. I mean, you can just go to the portal and create all the objects. This is what we're trying to end up with. So I have a resource group here, and all the objects is in that resource group. Your load balancer, private link service, your proxy, which is the VM, and the gateway, importantly, that will forward traffic to your on-prem services. I also have a Terraform code here. If you open this up, my Terraform code can guide you. All you need to do is go to the variables, VM password, and your root certificate and all. Okay. I create a resource group. I create my VNet. I create 3 subnets. I create that. Once that is done, you should end up with something like this. Then deploy the gateway. Then for me to configure pointer sites, you generate root and chat certificate in PowerShell on your SQL Server machine. The personal certificate, and you see the root certificate. Export that. You can export it to a notepad, copy the contents, ignore the header and the footer of the content, just the main content. Then you go back to your Azure portal. That gateway may take about 15-20 minutes to be ready. Once it's configured, go to pointer sites configuration and put in that certificate data you copied. Then once you save that, you can download the VPN client. It should bring up this. Then you point it to the chat certificate. So root certificate was in your Azure, chat certificate is on your local SQL Server instance, and that's how they're going to communicate. You should see that there's an IP address assigned. Let's assume this is the IP address 172.16.0.2. We create that. Then you configure the ports on the virtual machine. So you need to log into virtual machine, RDP to that. It's HA proxy, SSH to that. And make sure you open up the interface, configure port forwarding. Then back in our portal, we make sure we have a network security group, making sure that the destination port 1433 is allowed. Now you need to create your standard load balancer. So the standard load balancer, make sure it's standard, okay, when you are creating the load balancer. And you specify the backend pool name. You get a front-end IP. Then you configure earth probes and rules, so that will monitor that the communication between your load balancer, which is forwarding traffic to your VM, everything is working. Then you add that VM to the backend pool. Just verify, so you see the earth probe is there, then view details. If you're having issues, come here and check and just probe and make sure. Of course, you have set for it to be probing the protocol and the port on TCP 1433. This must be up. If this is down, then configuration is not yet okay, then you need to recheck. So you can go to your SQL Server instance just to further confirm, try to test the connection of that load balancer through the port 1433 and just make sure it's working. You can even go ahead and run the SQL command. If you get that result, you know that the communication is good. So that's all done. We now go to the private link setup. And like I said, many of you may have to start at this phase 4 if you already have your SQL Server set up, communicating with your gateway already in your Azure environment. Just jump here, okay? So private link service setup, which is you want to allow these subnets to host a private link service. By default, Azure will have blocked private link service traffic, so we need to explicitly disable those policies, saying that we want this private link service to be enabled. This is the private link service that is created here. You use that front end IP. Then at the end of the day, Privatelink service will generate an alias. Retrieve that alias. You can also copy it from the portal, just like I showed you. Save this alias because you're going to use that in your Snowflake configuration. So you'll be ending with all these resources in your resource group. Okay, so I head over to Snowflake, which is my phase where I'm going to provision a Privatelink endpoint. Provision Privatelink endpoint. Two things is going to ask you, well, two minimum, you can add more. Provider resource ID, then that alias. Okay, so once you provision that, you can check if it's well provisioned. Once you provision that, you can check and you will see the result that is provisioned. You will now need to go to the private endpoint connection in Azure, then you will click approve. So you see, I have approved that. VNet is talking to Azure, your Azure VNet, and you approve that connection. Then I can go ahead now, create my network rule, allowing all the ports. Here you can allow only 14.3, or let's say you have your multiple SQL Server instance, and you want to now configure different ports for them, and not just 14.3, then you can allow 0. Then when you get to Openflow, you can specify which port exactly. And I created an external access integration using the network rule that we just created. Once that is all set up, I can go into my Openflow. So you have your SQL Server processor group. In the JDBC URL, you will be using that alias, which is allowed in your network group. So you put in your credentials and username, password. If everything goes well, then you can verify and test the connections. Openflow make a request through the private endpoint to that Privatelink service, and you see it's successful because traffic was forwarded through the load balancer to the proxy to the on-prem SQL server, and data begin to flow from our on-prem SQL instance into Snowflake through Privatelink. What I have on my on-prem SQL server right there into Snowflake. And don't forget, it's only tables that has chain tracking enabled that we go through. This is it. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment on the video. You can write to me. I can be of help. Thank you for watching.